Well, hey there, how's it going? Instead of sending a Christmas card out this year, I thought I'd read you a poem I wrote about a Minnesota mystery that I think you'll all quite enjoy. Oh, and hey, what do you know? Looks like it's beginning to snow. Let's have a cheers to this, and I'll begin right here for you. All right, this is a little tale about a few people you may know. It's called Santa's Adventures with Pawlenty and Favre by Nick Hanson. It was an old habit neither of the men partook in often, but the depressed duo were in dire need of something that would make their mood soften. Pawlenty and Favre, two men with once great aspirations, poured 2 tall tumblers full of scotch with great exasperation. One was a lamed-up governor with lofty presidential goals. The other, a wily sports vet with Super Bowl dreams that somehow ended up in the toilet bowl. How they had fallen so far, who knew? But the crestfallen duo remained hell-bent on making their dreams come true. A Christmas miracle was needed indeed. It was the only way the frozen tundra politician and silver fox slinger would have not to have their dreams conceived. There was only one man who could aid this helpless situation. That's right, you guessed it. A jolly old fat man who likely had atrial fibrillation. From an all-seeing globe in his wondrous North Pole quarters, Santa Claus looked upon the sullen duo sobbing inside Pawlenty's mansion and promptly decided he would lend a hand. You see, contrary to popular belief, Santa was not a merciless man who punished weak, bad, and evil across the land. And certainly, neither of these men had been proper moral compasses either. Pawlenty was a selfish governor who had abandoned his South St. Paul roots for the national spotlight, and Favre, well, he was an egotistical, sex-texting maniac who did it all in an attempt to get access to Den Sturger's beaver. Santa would not be granting these men a Super Bowl ring or high public office, however. His plan would be much more righteous and clever. Upon the eve of Christmas, Santa gazed into the clear sky and saw nary a snow flurry. Yet, despite the calm and clear weather, to execute his plan, Santa would have to depart early. With his sleigh brimming full of presents, Santa guided his reindeer toward Minnesota with a lofty goal of making 2 despicable men more pleasant. Santa swooped past the governor's mansion, and with a wave of his hand he emitted some North Pole magic that transported Favre and Pawlenty into his sleigh. 2 confused men looked at each other and said, "What the hey?" Santa bellowed, "Listen here, you 2 are coming with me tonight to learn a bit about Christmas cheer. And trust me," he said, "there is nothing to fear." Off they zoomed into the wintry night and landed atop the first rooftop of their flight. Favre and Pawlenty were taken aback by the home that looked nothing like their fancy mansions. It was a small 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom rambler, and it lacked any fashion. "How can this family be happy with so little?" Favre said out loud. "They have each other, and that's all they need, which is why presents for this family will be so special," Santa retorted as he blew smoke from his holiday pipe and it started to gather in a cloud. The trio shuffled down the first chimney and left presents aplenty where the family was living. And thus, Santa had taught the duo the gift of giving. The next stop of the journey was not home at all, but a soup kitchen where a nicely dressed man stood proud and tall. The man dished helpings left and right with a smile on his face that was quite a delight. Pawlenty asked Santa, "Who is that man volunteering his time to help the needy?" Santa said, "Why, that's just a kind soul who has more than enough for himself, so he helps others to avoid feeling greedy." Santa could see that the duo never considered helping others could bring them joy, but he knew they had learned their lesson once he watched him look at the man in the soup kitchen and realized that his happiness was not a ploy. Their last stop of the night was to an old millionaire's home, where they pulled up and watched him through a foggy old window. The wrinkled old man was pacing about, and then he wandered over to the fireplace and gave it a kindle. He took a seat at his desk, and much to his surprise, he wrote out a check for millions to fight cancer. Except he made sure that it be known that he was not the donor, which made Favre think that he had some type of ulterior answer. Pawlenty's face turned hard, and he asked, "Are you telling me that people don't do things just to be famous?" "No," Santa said. "That would be quite dangerous. Most people don't have the luxury of just saying, 'Hey you, do this.'" Suddenly Santa saw Pawlenty and Favre get rid of their hubris. It had been a great night, and both men had learned a ton. But now that they had learned their lesson, Santa simply had to run. More presents to deliver, he said. I must depart. Then Pawlenty and Favre spoke, and it came straight from the heart. We want to help you, Santa. You've taught us to be good men. And now our honor we must defend. Santa smiled ear to ear and shook both their hands. I'm glad I could help, my sons. Now let's deliver these presents across the lands. So they trotted the globe as a trio that night, and to each of them it was quite a delight. And if you listen hard as they pass over your neighborhood this year, there's a good chance you'll hear them say, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Thanks for listening, and have a Merry, Merry Christmas.